Boot options. Boot options is a useful tool. By default, DSS boots in 64-bit mode. If you have systems that you start off with that are 32 and you use the DSS V6 to test, all you have to do is switch back to 32-bit mode because DSS defaults to 64-bit mode. Normally, if you have a new system, we prefer that you use 64-bit mode. Boot parameters. Boot parameters disable the advanced power management features that some motherboards have. You can also do this on the motherboard as well. But for most purposes, you can disable for the advanced power management features such as ACPI, APM, IO, APIC. Now the SMP on the bottom is symmetrical multiprocessor. We don't recommend disabling that, as you want to be able to use all cores of the multiprocessor for your CPUs. And that's pretty much it for the console tools. Let's go right into another tool feature, which is the network tools. And you're just going to go Control-Alt-N for network. And here this provides a list of all your NICs. Here you can change the IP addresses. So if you have E0 set for this default IP address, which DSS provides, you can set it for active on or off, DHCP on. You can change the IP address. All you have to do is just cursor the arrow down with the cursor keys and then change your IP address. You can also set your gateway. And once you're done, you can hit apply. The info information is valuable to find out if there are any dropped packets either from the receiving side or the transmit side. So you can see if there's any network issues. You can also verify the speed, and here you see it's at 1,000 megabits and it's using full duplex. And auto negotiation is on. Now going back, we see that we can set default gateways. So here we have a default gateway set, and we can assign it to the NIC that we prefer it to be on. You can also set for your DNS settings and also for routing settings. So here you can add a new route, set an IP address, the net mask, and gateway, and then select your interface. So the network settings is a very useful tool. It's very simple and fast. You can also do that in the GUI. If we were to go into the DSS, we go to Setup, Network, Interface, and here you see the server name you can set, the host name, and these are all the NICs. And you can see where it's designated to be the default gateway here for this E0. You can also set up your static routing. And of course you can do your bonding as well. So you can also add DNS servers here and also add many. So let's look at the other tools that we have. One of the well-known tools is the Control-Alt-X for the extended tools. Now, this is very advanced functions. You want to enter the web GUI password, and here I select admin, which is our default password. Now the select default volume group is useful. So let's say you have an existing volume group VG00, but you add a new volume group because you'd like to decommission your volume group. So what you would do is you would be able to have multiple volume groups here and be able to switch them over. So if I had another volume group called VG01, I want to decommission VG00, I can switch them to be VG01. A reboot will take place, and then your default volume group will be the volume group that you've chosen. The Restore Default Administrator settings has a lot of the restoring defaults back. If you look here at the Setup Administrator in the GUI, it concerns with all these functions with the administrator of access, password, email notification. So all this will be put back into its default configuration settings, including the remote console. There's no reboot for that. The Restore Default Network settings. So let's say you've had bonds, or if you had different IP address settings for the NICs, all these will revert back to the default of the DSS settings that you initially stored. This will not cause a reboot, but your network cards will basically be reset back to the defaults. So you'll have to set them here using the Control-Alt-N. The restore factory setup settings will restart the DSS server. So be careful in doing that. Where this is if you go into setup, this is going to change a lot of the networks. It's going to change the administrator settings, all the things that are associated under the setup that you have here, your time and so forth. So this will cause a restart. So anything associated with the setup, if you want to restore it back to factory setup, that's where it will affect. Now the restore factory configuration settings is similar. It'll also do a reboot, and it'll do everything with under the configuration for your NAS settings, your shares. You won't lose your data, but if you had targets, it'll rename the targets back to target 0, or actually you won't have target zeros, but allow you to add new targets. So your data will still be there, you just will no longer have target 0 available. Now the next setting is remote support, which is a very widely used feature. A lot of times you may experience where you want to be able to verify that drivers are loaded, or you have a diagnostics issue that you want our engineers to come on the back end. We supply this where you can click on the select the remote support. Just make sure that you have outbound access, because our engineers will SSH into the system. It's encrypted, so it's very secure. The DSS does need to get a gateway to the internet and is not blocked by a firewall using TCP outgoing port number 65500. And once this is done, you want to enact it. It'll ask you. Then you want to provide a ticket number. So it would be something of the nature of 7 digits. And you can add a note, please review my issue. And at this point in time, you'll see that it'll go through a process verifying that there is internet connectivity. Then it'll ask the remote support server to exchange the SSH encryption key, verifying it, and then of course remote support is activated. Now this allows our engineers to access the system, and then you'll see a note here, remote support service is connected. Now we'll go back into the extended tools, and we're going to stop the remote support. So this will deactivate the remote support service. The next function is the remove Apple temporary files. In many cases you may have Mac systems, and this helps to remove the temporary files. So here, if I had AppleTalk filing protocol on the backup, I would be able to remove these files. This will not affect your current live files, and this does not cause a restart. Also, the reset of access control list of files and directories. This is also in the GUI, but in many times you may want to reset them all back to their defaults. And you can see it's relatively quick. If you have millions of files, this can take a little bit longer. But in the DSS, if we go to NAS configuration, under the NAS resources under configuration, here we go to the shares, and here you can see the access control list. So if we click on the access control list, we can go right to that share, select the users, then go right into the access permission. And here you can set the users for read, write, and execute. So by default, we set them back to all reads. Set owners of files and directories. You can do this here. It's a very fast, effective way of efficiently to be able to set the share and then set the owner and username. So you can put an asterisk for many or just for a certain user. Now the repair file system on a logical volume. So this is a very useful tool. Let's say there was a power outage and there were some issues where the files, for some reason you have some issues in the RAID array and the volumes aren't for your shares. You're not able to, you're seeing some inconsistencies. With the repair file system is similar to a Microsoft check disk. So this will repair inodes, file issues that are broken in half, or it'll do a lot of cleanup, and it will do a restart. So please be aware of this. And it goes through 7 phases, and you'll be able to view on the screen how many files it repaired, and what it repaired from. The restore logical volume for the volume group and logical volume manager. So in this case, let's say you had deleted a logical volume and you wanted to see if you can restore. Here you want to select the latest date that incident happened, and you will be able to restore that logical volume. This will cause a restart, but once you restart the system, you should be able to see your logical volume. Now, the physical volume resize is a tool that is used if, let's say, you do a RAID migration, adding additional drives to your existing RAID array, and you want to expand your volume group. The PV resize will see the volume. If you're doing that, you'll see the new additional drives added. This will cause a restart, and once you do this, you'll go into the volume manager and unit manager and be able to do a rescan, and there you'll be able to add your new capacity to your existing volume group. In many cases, the remove all snapshot can be done virtually right into the GUI. But for this instance, if you have many snapshots, and let's say you have 20 snapshots and you want to remove them all at once, this will do it. So you don't have to go to the GUI and click each one at a time. This will cause a restart, so please be aware of it. Same with also the remove logical volume. So if you have a logical volume that you need to remove it from console, but please be aware that this will cause a restart. So typically you want to do this from the GUI to prevent a restart. And the last one is delete contents of unit. This is probably one of the most dangerous tools if you are unaware of what its function is. Deleting contents of units is deleting your volumes. And once you delete your volumes, you cannot restore them. So if you were to go into the configuration volume manager and see the volume groups, here you do not have the ability to delete your volumes, which is considered as S for your units. So we have here S000, and this is our volume VG00, our volume group. So there's no way to delete it in the GUI. Here's where you do it, and it will cause a restart. That's it for our extended tools. Now let's look at the other tools that we have. There's the Control-Alt-R for the RAID tools, for deep RAID functions. So if you have, let's say, an Adaptic, a Reka, a 3-ware, or what we have is an LSI, you can actually go right into the console screen for the RAID controller here. So you have many deep functions that you can access it.